Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. So today we're going to do some summer sausage. And just to preempt any of the keyboard warriors out there, I am not talking about summer sausage that Lewis and Clark would have made to sustain themselves as they went cross country. I'm talking about a summer style sausage that you might slice before a game, pair with some crackers and cheese that just tastes good, like that classic flavor. That you might pick up as a gift in the middle of the mall at the kiosk, that sort of thing. It's really good. I've made a lot of late and I really feel like I've dialed in the recipe that I like, so I thought I'd show it to you today. Sausage making generally can be pretty complex, a lot of different equipment you can invest in. And my goal today is to show you how you can do your own summer sausage at home with minimal investment. Where I deviate from that, I'll talk about some other options and things that you can do differently than even what I'm going to do today. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I appreciate you joining, and I thank you in advance for liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And let's get moving. Okay, so let's first talk about the meat selection. I'm going to do a small batch today. My normal batch is 5 pounds. I'm going to do 2.5 pounds. Because again, 5 pounds can be a little bit unwieldy, and you may not want to do that much, at least to start out with or at any given time. So I cut my standard recipe in half. I think 2.5 pounds is still easy to manage, but it still has a yield at the end that makes it worthwhile to go through the process. You can use whatever meat you want. I almost always use a mixture of beef and pork. And for this, I have 1.5 pounds of ground brisket and 1 pound of ground pork. I did grind the brisket myself because I used it for something else and had this left over, and it was nearly exactly 1.5 pounds. And then I just picked up 1 pound of ground pork at the grocery store. And that is typically pork shoulder, has a good fat content. I used to do this with reasonably lean ground beef, and it worked, but you definitely want to have 20 to 30% fat content. In my experience, it makes the best consistency in your summer sausage. And adding this pork shoulder to this ground brisket is going to keep me in that 20 to 30% range without separating fat out and measuring percentages of lean versus fat meat. Again, trying to keep this simple. So I would go with 1 pound or so of pork shoulder and add it to some 80-20 ground beef. If you don't want to grind your own, again, I did grind my own brisket. I've got a reasonably new meat grinder that I used for something else, but don't feel like you've got to grind your own meat. Just do a good mixture, have that 20 to 30% fat content, and don't sweat over it. Now this is reasonably cold, like probably partially frozen. I may or may not be able to mix this, but we're going to give it a shot and see where we are. I may have to pause, let it thaw just a little bit. But we're just going to get this mixed up, and yeah, this is still pretty hard. This is not going to, well, maybe it will. But that brings me to cold meat. You definitely want to use cold meat. What you don't want to do is start rendering fat as part of your mixing. And that goes for grinding, or if you're really stuffing this into something, which we will be later. You want it to be cold because you don't want that fat to start to render. Some people obsess over that, and I'm sure they're better sausage makers than I am. I just do my best to make sure things are cold, and it turns out fine. So try not to stress too much over it. All right, so this is going to mix well enough, I think, that we can go ahead and keep going here. Some of these pieces are pretty hard, and they're still a little bit frozen in the middle, but this is pretty good. So first thing we're going to start out with, I might go through some measurements just if I remember them off the top of my head. But what I'm going to do is I've weighed all of this out to make it perfect for my particular recipe by the gram or milliliter or whatever. I am going to put that in the description, along with the measurements that we here in the United States are all used to, just to make it easier. Again, I'm trying to do this and show you how anybody can make a summer sausage. I need a little more leverage, so I'm going to stand up. And the first thing we're going to add is some water. And I have, I believe, a half a cup. Excuse me, a quarter cup. No. A half a cup of water. Yes, a half a cup. 100 milliliters, which makes just right at a half a cup. So we're going to put that in. I'm going to mix this around a little bit. You do want your sausage, any sausage you make, to have a certain level of moisture for the binding process. And we'll talk a little bit more about mixing this in our binding process as we get done. And this is mixing up nicely. Having that little bit frozen meat is great as far as keeping this cold, and it's sort of thawing as we go. So it's working out well. Okay, next we have our spices. We've got kosher salt, garlic salt, mustard seed, black pepper. I'll put this in the description again, along with those exact measurements. There may be even something else in there I'm forgetting, but it'll be in the description. And we're just going to sprinkle that in. I kind of like to go, around half without getting too scientific, and just get that incorporated. And after doing that for a few seconds, I'll go ahead and throw the rest of it in. So there we go. I love mustard seeds in summer sausage. You could certainly find a level of ground mustard that works for you if you don't want those seeds in there. I happen to love them. I think it's great in summer sausage, so that's what I'm using. And honestly, I couldn't tell you how much ground mustard would be the equivalent in work, just because I've always used the mustard seed. All right. Next, we're going to add a binder, and I'm going to use milk powder measured out around 1.5% of the total weight. And this is for a binder. It will make your sausage consistency better, but I made this a number of times over the years and didn't use a binder at all. So it's not what I see as super critical. Expert sausage makers would likely disagree with me, but I have made this a lot of times and not used a binder at all. I've used nutritional yeast also. I saw that recommendation on Two Guys in a Cooler, who I think make really good recipes and good sausage. So nutritional yeast will work. But I'm using milk powder, accessible at any store, and we're really starting to get to the consistency of good sausage here. And the way you can tell is put it on your hand, and if it sticks, you're there. So I think we're good. All right, one thing I'm going to add, and I have done this without curing before, but I am going to cure it today, and that is Prague Powder #1, pink curing salt. It is not pink Himalayan salt, as you'll see everybody say. It is salt with nitrites in it at around 6.25%, not around exactly, and that's exactly what I need, a half a teaspoon, in order to cure 2.5 pounds of meat. And I like the cure. It gives it more shelf stability, and it gives it that pink color. If you don't use a cure, it won't last as long, maybe a few days in your fridge, and you can certainly freeze it, but curing it will give it that nice pink hue, and it will last longer in your fridge, like 2 to 3 months even. Your cure is something you may have to order. I get mine from Amazon, and it's essentially a teaspoon for 5 pounds of meat, so I use a half of a teaspoon. All right, there we go. I'm getting this sticking to me, which is a good sign. It means that our protein extraction is going well, and we're going to have a great consistency. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna add, and this is completely optional, but I've got some dehydrated jalapeños. They're a Lighthouse brand. I get them from Amazon. And I've also got some high temperature Swiss cheese. I love adding high temp cheese to my summer sausage. And I just went package recommendations, 10% of the weight of the meat, and the jalapeños I just eyeballed, and I just mixed these together. We're gonna put those in, and I like to do these last so I don't work these a lot and break up the jalapeños too much or the cheese. I'm already gonna apologize for the length of this video, but I really want to show you everything that my experimentation has taught me. All right, the last thing I'm gonna add, and you want to do this at the end for sure, is encapsulated citric acid. This will give your summer sausage sort of that zing, that sourness that a good summer sausage has, but it is optional. I went a lot of time without using this. It's encapsulated, I believe they use like coconut oil or something. So the citric acid is encapsulated in some sort of oil that will break down and release the citric acid at around 130 degrees. And as long as it's at that temperature range for an hour or more, I think, don't quote me, it will all be released, and it will really give your summer sausage that summer sausage tang that is sort of goes along with summer sausage. So again, you don't want to work this a lot. You don't want to start breaking those capsules early. It will affect the consistency of the meat. So just give it a final work. Okay, I forgot one ingredient. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop the filming here. I'm gonna go grab one more thing. We'll bring you right back and we'll talk about the next steps. So see you in just a minute. All right, our final ingredient, we're gonna use some liquid smoke, around 2.5 teaspoons, and that's probably about what I have left in this container. I'm not even gonna measure it. I'm just gonna put it in. Now I will say liquid smoke can be very strong, so you need to be careful with this. I've just done this a lot, and I know that that looked like a pretty good amount. But if you use it, you'll definitely want to measure it out, and I will put that measurement in the description. All right, so we're gonna get this worked around. Now, because we use the curing salts, we need to let this cure. That Prague Powder #1 or that pink curing salt, we need to let this cure at least 12 hours, up to 24 hours, or you could even go longer probably, I think I have, but 12 to 24 hours. This needs to sit and cure. You'll actually see it turns into a gray color. Now, the other thing I added, and I did this off camera because I actually mixed it in, is something called sodium erythrobate, and that is a cure accelerator. And the advantage to using that is that you can go straight to cooking. You don't have to let it sit for 12 to 24 hours. But if you just used your pink curing salt, you cannot just go straight to cooking. You need to let it sit and cure. So that's one place that I'm going to differ from what you might do. I don't know that you want to get on in Amazon and find sodium erythrobate just to make a batch of summer sausage. Let this sit overnight. Lastly, before we move on to the next step, and I have to get another glove, but we are going to make small balls or rolls with this summer sausage, about like that. I'm going to get another glove so I can do that quickly, but when we bring you back, you're going to see that I have a handful of rolls just about like this, and we'll talk about why then. So I will bring you back soon. Okay, so here's our summer sausage that we sort of divided into cylinder shapes. And we'll talk about why we did that here in just a minute. So just to recap, this is a 2.5 pound batch. I normally do a 5 pound batch, but I wanted to make it a little smaller, just again, trying to make it accessible for somebody that doesn't do this very often. You want 20 to 30% fat content. I like using a mixture of ground beef and ground pork. Ground pork is typically pork shoulder that gets you in that 25% fat content range. And normally it's not listed, just going by experience. We've used salt, mustard seed, black pepper, a little garlic salt, some liquid smoke. I used milk powder as a binder. A binder is optional. I used Prague Powder #1 or pink curing salt, which is also optional, but I really like the pink color that it gives your summer sausage, and it'll help that shelf stability so you don't have to go directly to the freezer or eat it within a couple of days. And then I used a cure accelerator so we could go straight to cooking instead of letting it cure in the fridge for at least 12 to 24 hours. I'm gonna use a fibrous casing, so it's the same as you will get in that sausage at the mall. But you don't have to. I have done this before where I have just hand formed a log in whatever shape and size I wanted. You could use saran wrap and foil and really nail the shape if you want. You could cook it in that foil, saran wrap and foil. But I'm going to show you for a small investment how I like to do summer sausage. Again, you don't have to have this, but if you think you might want to do some things like beef jerky and snack sticks, I use the Jerky Gun, which is essentially just a caulk gun for meat. And it comes with different tips. You know, here's an example to do like snack sticks, you know, small cylinder shape. But here's the cool thing. So if I put this jerky gun together, I should have oiled up the plunger, but it'll be fine. Get that in there and we'll open the plunger up. Try to stay on camera here. So hopefully you can see this, but look what we can do. We'll put our sausage mixture in. Trying to keep one hand clean. Use my left hand to get dirty. And just start filling the tube. And I may not be able to quite get all of this 2.5 pounds in the gun, but I'll get quite a bit of it. If we don't put any tip on this jerky gun, I can get this fibrous casing. This is a 2.5 inch fibrous casing. It's just a little awkward, but once you get it, it's great. So I can get this fibrous casing all the way over, just like a giant prophylactic, frankly, that jerky gun. And I'll just hold it there pretty tight and just start to fill it up. And it's essentially like a giant caulk gun. And once it starts to get to the end, I can start to relieve some pressure on the gun and it will just push it out. And when I get down to the end, there we go. I'll release the plunger, or I'll pull the plunger out. And I'll just reload the gun. I'm just going to do one of the fibrous casings full. This should fit every bit of this meat in there. At least I hope it will. And even when I want to make smaller rolls of summer sausage, I'll just still use these same casings and I will just cut them off. It's a little bit of a waste of a casing, but this method for me works so well. And by the way, it's almost impossible to rupture these casings. So hold it pretty tight and really get it packed in there in order to make sure you don't get a lot of air or any big air pockets in your sausage roll. And there we go. Little left on the side there. Get this out of the way. And you can always just put that in the end, it'll be fine. Alright, so in order to be able to work with this better, I'm going to take these gloves off. I've got some butcher's twine here, already cut, and this might not all get on the camera, but I'm just going to really tighten that down in there, make sure it's full, and twist it really tightly, and then tie it off. And what I like to do, and I'm really awkward at tying these things, so I'm living proof that you don't have to be perfect, because I have made pretty good summer sausage whether my tie was perfect or not. I like to wrap it around twice and then do my, I'm not sure I got it that second time, do my best to keep it as tight as possible and start to pull it, and then I give it final twist just to make sure, and there we go, and then just knot it up again. So I'm going to grab a paper towel really quick and just clean this up as best I can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, so here's our nice chub of summer sausage ready to go. So let's talk about cooking. I'm going to cook this on the pellet cooker. You can totally do this in the oven. I've done it in the oven before. Lowest setting, 170 is how low my oven goes. Go as low as you can. And you really want to bring this up to temperature slowly. And by temperature, it's 150 to 155 for me with the curing salts added, 160 to 165 with no curing salts. I like the 150. I think it's a much better texture and a much better summer sausage. So that's what I shoot for. But you want to get there slowly. So I'm going to do this in the pellet cooker, but you can do it in the oven. You can also do it in a sous vide cooker. And that I would throw on 150 to 154. And it's around an hour for every inch in diameter your summer sausage is. So this is 2.5 inches, call it 3 just to be safe. So it'd probably be about 3 hours in there at 155, 153, 155. But we're going to do this on the pellet cooker, try to add a little more smoke, and so we will see you out there. Okay, so I've got this chub here out at the pellet grill, my summer sausage. I do have a Traeger temperature probe in it. You are going to want to monitor the temperature, however you can do that. I used to just do this at the lowest oven setting, 165, 170, whatever, for 9 to 10 hours. And that works, but you lose the consistency if you miss that temperature window. And again, I'm shooting for 150 to 155, and I do have this cured. So I am going to monitor this temperature. And it's best if you get this up to temperature as slowly as possible. So I'm going to put this on the cold Traeger before I even turn it on. And I've sort of got it on a middle shelf is what I'm going to do. And I a lot of times use another rack just to keep it clean, but you don't need this fibrous casing anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. And then I'm going to put a pan under it. You might find it drips a little bit, but it won't drip much. So let's get our Traeger on. And I'm going to go with that lowest temperature setting of 165. And I have added liquid smoke to this, as you know, but I'm going to go ahead and turn on the super smoke as well. Can't really do that until after the igniting is done, but I am going to turn that super smoke on, and we're just going to let this go. And there's really going to be nothing to see, so I am going to keep track of the time. It's right now outside it's 9 degrees, so this is going to be chilly. It's chilly out here. Add super smoke, there we go. So the internal temperature of the grill right now is 21 degrees. So this is going to come up slowly, maybe not quite as slowly as I would like, but it's still going to be pretty good. And it is now noon, just a few minutes after noon, so we'll keep track of the time and how long this takes. I may bump up the temperature past 165, nearing 180 to 200, but only after it's been on for several hours, because again, you want to go slow. So we'll bring you back. Okay, we have been on right at 5 hours. We just hit 150 degrees on our summer sausage. This next part is a little inconvenient for me to film, but I'm gonna be using the big sink in the laundry room, and we're just going to put this summer sausage, we'll look at it real quick. Nothing to see, but there she is. We're gonna put the summer sausage in an ice bath for about 15 minutes. That's gonna help stop that cooking process, make sure we don't go too far over 150, and it will also help that fibrous casing come loose from the sausage so it doesn't take chunks out when you peel it off. I have done this with just rinsing it in cold water, and I've even not done it, and quite frankly it always turns out okay. But best practices, we're going to throw it in an ice bath for 15 minutes, and we'll see you after that. Alright, so here's our 2.5 pounds plus summer sausage log. It has been sitting out of the ice water now for probably a half hour. It was in the ice bath for about 15-20 minutes. Notice I left the temperature probe in. I'm going to take it out now. I'm going to try. The fact that I can't is a good sign. It means a good solid summer sausage. But I didn't want to take it out while it was hot because I didn't want all the fat to run out. Now that it's cooled off, that fat will have hardened back up. Might get a little drainage there, but not much. And so all of the fat that was in the meat should still be in our summer sausage log, and fat is flavor. So you could totally cut into this right now, but it's better to let it sit out on the counter for a couple of hours and go through what they call the blooming stage and really let that smoke penetrate into the meat, even out, and it will even help the color. That rosy color will get deeper and deeper as it sits. So after a couple hours before bed tonight, this is going to go to the fridge, and I like to let mine sit for 24 to 48 hours in the refrigerator before cutting into it. So we'll see you in 24 to 48 hours. Okay, it's been a couple of days, 48 hours, not quite 48 hours in the fridge. Again, I just think that gives it time for the flavors to come together, for it to really solidify and be a true consistency of a good summer sausage. So I like to let it rest like that, but let's cut in and see how we did. All right, it certainly slices like a good summer sausage. Ooh, looks great. Smells really good. I don't know if you can see that or not. I hope it's focusing. All kinds of cheese and those jalapeno bits in there, which of course are optional, but I do enjoy that. So let's just do a slice. Of course, this casing is the fibrous option, which is non-edible, so you need to peel it off. Soaking it in ice water after it comes off the smoker allows that to peel off pretty cleanly. Little bit of residue there on the fibrous casing, just in one spot, but generally it's very clean. So there's our slice. Looks great. Let's give it a try. That is really good. Definitely taste the jalapenos in there. Not overwhelming, and I would not call it at all spicy. Cheese adds that nice creaminess. That's a great summer sausage. So I tell you what, I'm going to pause the video right here and I'm going to show you my favorite way to eat this. So we'll bring you back in just a minute. So I like most any cracker, but for me it's just hard to beat a straight up saltine. So the way I like to do these is I've got this mustard. It's a jalapeno honey mustard that I got from a place called Grandpa's Cheese Barn in Northeast Ohio. I love it. I got to get another jar sometime. I'm running low. But I've got some Ritz crackers, some saltines, got a little smoked cheese, and I'll put the link to that video in the description. So a little jalapeno honey mustard, some smoked cheese, my jalapeno Swiss summer sausage, and I'm just gonna shove this whole cracker in the pie hole, and hopefully the chewing won't be too obnoxious. So good. One of the best appetizers you can make as far as I'm concerned. So let's talk about what I'm going to do with this now. This will last 2 to 3 months in the fridge. Now I have some of the last batch that we're still eating on, so I will probably freeze all of this, and I might cut each of these halves in half again and use the food saver and seal them up, take all the air out of there, and these will last in the freezer probably longer than I will be alive. But they won't have to, because we'll pull one right out after the other. I may try to leave one of these in here for several months at least and come back for a follow-up video if I think of it. I wouldn't be a bad video to have. But if you thaw them out, they'll be as good as new. There might be a little texture change, but won't be that big of a deal, and they will still be great. So I appreciate you going on this journey with me. Don't be afraid to make summer sausage. I tried to give you some tips if you don't have all the equipment that I had. For a small investment, you can make summer sausage for your family. And this is about as simple a recipe as you can get. Keep in mind the high temperature cheese and the dehydrated jalapenos are completely optional. Just a handful of spices you probably already have in your pantry. Maybe grab yourself some Prague Powder #1 or the Instacure. I think it's important for the shelf stability and for that wonderful pink color that this sausage has. You might consider a small investment in that encapsulated citric acid, but even that is optional. I made this for years without even knowing what encapsulated citric acid was, but it does provide that nice sausage tang. So with that, I'm going to cut this video off here. Thanks so much for joining, and do yourself a favor and make yourself some of this. You won't regret it. Again, not that difficult at all. If you have any questions, if I was unclear about anything, which is totally possible, please feel free to ask them in the description. I'm no expert, but I will answer them to the best of my ability. Check out channels like Two Guys in a Cooler. Food Wishes, Chef John at Food Wishes made a great summer sausage just in his oven, and he's awesome. Bradley Robinson from Chud's Barbecue is the best sausage maker I have seen and the funnest to watch on YouTube. So thanks again for joining. We'll see you next time, and talk to you later. And like and subscribe. Do that for me, please. Thanks.